Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Walterdoom back for another episode of Let's Talk About Horror. And I have brought back my boy as a guest on the show, Jeremy from Northern Tier. How you doing, man?
Fine. I'm good. It was a long week, so I'm still recovering from it.
I
Doing
feel you,
doing the show
man.
is great. Yeah, I'm fine. No, good to be back though, man. Congrats on episode 57. This
Yeah,
is this is
man.
big.
Yeah, man. I had to come back. I had to bring you back onto the show because we had a very interesting topic, well, of conversation last time, just about Black representation in film, and feel like that a lot of people really like what they were hearing and what they were seeing because it is a very interesting topic. I mean, we do need more diversity as long as like literally intended. If the intention is there, you know.
Intent matters. Um, and I think that as we go forward, I think that we're getting a little bit more problematic with like intent and stuff. But I guess we're talking about that today. So
Yeah, yeah.
when we get there, we discuss it because that is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, as you guys know, to follow me on social medias, if you haven't followed me yet, it's Walter Doom on Instagram, Walter Doom1 on Twitter, and Walter Doom on everything else with the point.
There you go.
Yeah. And if you want to follow Jeremy, he is Northern Tier actual, right?
Northern Tier Actual on Instagram and last page _kills on Twitter.
Yep, yep. All right. So first things first, we want to talk about some projects you've been working on. What have you been working on lately?
So as for projects, I've been in the process of revamping my podcast to talk more about like social justice and equity things, particularly from a perspective of people of color. And so we've been working on that, recorded 3 episodes so far. I'm going to start uploading them next week. And I have been still working on essays talking about the stuff we're talking about today: race, racism, whether or not we should be teaching Black History Month in schools. Yeah, so I've leaned more since we talked last. I've leaned more into the academic side and stuff like that because ain't nobody making movies right now, so I'm gonna just have to wait for that. So, yeah, so that's what I've been kind of working on. My my last thesis was on oppression and our responses to oppression. So my next one's going to be on Black History Month.
Okay. So what's your stance on Black History Month being taught in schools? Because I'm curious about that because I feel like we do need Black history taught in schools, but we don't need like just the sugar coated, oh, MLK, Malcolm X teachings. We need to get more in depth. And I feel like every year is just the same recycled history with every grade level. They don't dig deeper than that.
Yeah, I feel like on like the February 1st, it's like cue the MLK, remembering MLK emails and like stuff you get on your LinkedIn and stuff like that. You just wake up on February 1st and it's just like, today's a great day to remember the great words of Martin Luther King and all he's done for Black Americans. It's just like 9 of those,
Yeah.
The thing about Black History Month is that a lot of times for a lot of people it's conflated with like American history, which means that you have to teach it from an American history perspective. Mm-hmm. Which is why you typically end up getting versions of Black history that are acceptable for a culturally American history. So like you basically get a history from the perspective of exceptional Negroes, which is like kind of the term we use. So like you get your George Washington Carvers and you get your MLKs and you get your obviously like now Barack Obama and stuff like that, but you don't really get too many Sojourner Truth is a little problematic if you're teaching that from like an American history perspective. Harriet Tubman is a little problematic if you're teaching from an American history perspective, because she makes your country kind of look bad in a way.
Especially with security.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, even stuff like I was writing a short paper on Crispus Attucks, who was the first person to be killed during the Revolutionary War. He was a Black man. So the first person to die in the cause of American freedom was an African slave, basically.
Yeah,
and that's usually left out of history books. That's kind of avoided. Whether or not the intent is to say that like America's history is white history, we have to kind of explore that for the most part, but we can't go back and change it. So like I think that stuff like the 1619 project is kind of a really, really good start to kind of reconciling black history with American history, at least like making it make sense for a lot of people. Now, as for teaching Black History Month, my response to that is only if you can teach it correctly. And the problem we have is we don't know what correct looks like. So like that's why schools in Utah and Idaho are just like opting out of teaching it altogether. Because like on one side, I get it. It's like if you're at a school that's like all white, which like, you know, we live in Los Angeles and we're in a super diverse community, but like we're not in like rural South Dakota. You know, then like you're teaching a history that you don't quite understand, you don't really have like a perspective on, and 9 out of 10 times there's not like some dude you can go ask up the street and be like, hey, am I doing this right? Like was that, were slaves happy in the South? I don't know. Like, you know, you're just like asking those questions and like there's no real answers for you. But like, you know, so that's my thing is like, you know, we have to take that perspective into account, that like if you can't do it correctly, then like don't teach it at all, you know. We just have to figure out what correct looks like. Whose Black history do we want to represent? Because representing all of it could probably be problematic also, or just like unnecessary. You know, and then like the fact that America still hasn't really come to grips with slavery quite yet is
which is ridiculous, honestly.
Yeah, we're not there yet. we think we are. We think we're ready to have these conversations about like where does the Black man fit into America? Where like, you know, are we over slavery yet? Have we made all the necessary apologies? And like we're nowhere close.
No, like, not at all. Not at all.
No, not even like on this. We're not even on the same floor with that one, man. It's we got a long way to go. So.
It's funny because talking about this kind of reminds me of Antebellum and just like, and all that clusterfuck of like messages. The main message it was about is like, are we ready to get over what happened in the past? Are we ready to learn from the past in order to move on to the present? And it was definitely like a heavy theme that was like prevalent in the film, but it was like a theme that got really muddled up with like just a lot of like other messages about like feminism, about just like slavery, and it's just like a lot of things. It was just muddling up in that message. And my thing is like Antebellum could have been the best movie to come out last year if they had like a bit of good writing with it. You know, if they wrote it a little bit better and stuck to like a solid message and built on that.
Yeah, that's not the kind of movie they were trying to make though. And I mean like that's apparent like just from watching the entire movie. It's like if you were trying to make like kind of the great American film where like they're trying to like encapsulate like a single experience of like, you know, something that we have a perspective on into a single movie. Yeah, like it probably would look something like Antebellum. I don't know if it would be a horror film.
I mean, it was being presented as a horror film, and it's right. I mean, honestly speaking, for us, that's horrific. That would be horrifying to see. I mean, us sitting here talking about like American history and just talking about like equality and like just reparations and just like moving on from the past. I mean, yeah, maybe somebody out there is like thinking like those people in Antebellum, like, no, we need to get them right now. Put them in the fields.
Well, I mean, yeah. So Antebellum does bring up the question on like whose history do you want to see and whose history matters. So like, I mean, that doesn't come up in the movie at all. But
no,
like,
it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah. It's almost like, I mean, we have this kind of epidemic of like black TV shows and films with the aim of making them acceptable to like a white America. And I mean, I don't know if we talked about it last time or who I was talking about it with, but it's like shows like Blackish, and Grownish and the whole Ish franchise that's happening now.
Yeah.
Most of the things that Shonda Rhimes makes, like everything that comes out of Shondaland seems to have like white male producers, even though that's not the case for all of her stuff. But it's like it's aimed at an audience that is accepting of like a Black perspective from media that like white folks can watch, right? So like you can't do too many things that are like problematic, like Blackish. You have to have an upper middle class family that works in marketing and like you know, has a certain number of kids and only talks about certain things in a certain way, and you know, we can't be too offensive. And so it's just like, I mean, when you're presenting things like Black history, because like you're not gonna be able to tell the story of like Black Americans in media without talking about stuff like Blackish. So like one day we're gonna have to look back at these shows and be like, did we do it right? And the answer is probably going to be no, because it's like you find out that like, you know, even no matter how much work you put into it, you're not making things yet. You're making things that kind of like tiptoe around the stuff you really want to be talking about. So whereas like white America can pretty much tell stories about anything, freaking Mormons going crazy and murdering 15 people in the woods. Like, you know, like dudes with like 1,000 wives, presidents who pay off porn stars, and like, you know, when they're divorcing their wife who's sick and stuff like that. Like they can tell those stories. You can't really tell those stories that come out of like the Black community, because like one, we're afraid to make ourselves look bad, and two, the gatekeepers want to create an image of people of color that's acceptable to them. The representation of like Black people in film has a lot to do with like how we intend to represent them. So if we look back on shows like Blackish, like we have to have shows that kind of like appeal to both sides of the aisle. Yeah. And we can't make shows that like kind of like non-POC TV can do, to where like make stories about anything and it kind of appeals to everyone. Whereas like Black history is very specific. Black history and Black portrayals are very specific things, which is typically why they end up in the hands of like non-Black producers and non-Black writers who have to try to make it presentable. You know, stuff like, you know, Judas and the Black Messiah is very different. Black Klansman, stuff like that's like very, very, very different. But like things like Blackish, like mass media, like, you know, things that are has to reach the broadest audience. And I think that's kind of the same with like Black History Month, is like, how do you teach that to 250 million people? You know, when it only concerns 30 or 40 million or so, you know? So yeah, I mean, we'll know 10 years from now whether or not we did it right. Maybe 10 years from now we'll look back on Bad Hair and be like, where does this fit?
Good way of foreshadowing, because that is what we're going to segue into, is talking about Bad Hair. And you pretty much brought up a good point, like how can we make mass marketed, how can we tell our story and still live with like the credibility of knowing that we're telling our story without it being watered down for mass consumption, you know, for all the wrong reasons. And I feel like Black hair, well, not bad, Black hair. what the hell am I talking about? Bad hair.
I was like, same thing, really. alternate title.
I mean, in a way, it does kind of touch base on that, because I've seen the movie a bunch of times. Honestly, I have seen the movie a bunch of times, and I like the film. I really do like the film. I mean, I like the message that it's conveying. I feel like it does flip the narrative about what we consider bad hair, you know, as far as like a social issue, you know, because with us Black people, we're so obsessed with like what is good hair, you know. And most of us, I mean, not all of us, most of us would consider good hair being like the long, flowing, wavy hair and all that, you know, something that's like resembling something like a Brazilian or a Western European hairstyle. But we don't put much like value into our own natural hair. You know, we use hair products that messes up our hair or burn our hair to the scalp and everything. And use thousands of products that's harmful to our hair, and it's just like it's all for the name of beauty, of trying to have that that I guess conception of what is beautiful, what is acceptable, and what have you. But I want to know your thoughts about the movie. What is your thoughts about bad hair?
Yeah, well, first, like, hair is so integrally tied to like the Black experience,
Mm-hmm.
which is why, like, I mean, we were talking earlier, like, in the past couple of years we've had a lot of hair movies,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
particularly people of color related, not just Black, but
Mm-hmm.
but like specifically for black people, like it's such a huge part of like kind of our identity, because like it kind of tells you who you are, and it's like a thing you can't remove.
Yeah.
um so like, the the fact that like dreads or like braids and cornrows are so like iconic as like hairstyles, like means like so much. And
Yeah.
I think we're just at the point, like, like maybe last couple months, like super recent, of women coming forward and being like, hey, like I was allowed to wear my braids to work today, and like in the workplace, because like, for a while, for whatever reason, like, things like braids and stuff like that were considered to be unprofessional in like a workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
um yeah, and the United States Air Force a couple months ago just relaxed its like hair standards for women,
Mm.
to allow them to wear like some certain hairstyles within like a military framework. But
Yeah.
like all the stuff that we're talking about is like months, not like, oh yeah, a couple years ago. This is like December to now. It's like, hey, like, you're seeing stuff on Twitter where like women were allowed to, news anchors who are now allowed to wear, their natural hair on TV and stuff like that. And it's like, clearly this is important.
Yeah.
But like for stuff like bad hair, it's like I didn't like the movie, but the reasons I didn't like the movie were, it had nothing to do with like a filmmaking aspect. It just came from like it confused me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think about things like this. I know that the themes were great. It's
Hmm.
like you're talking about representation in the workplace, and you're talking about like, Black femininity, and like how Black women relate to their hair and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
to me, it's just like some of it didn't come off the right way, and some of it still kind of like, most of this has to do with her ex-boyfriend, dude. Is that Jay Farrow? Is that Jay Farrow?
Yeah.
That
It was
was
Jay
that was
Farrell.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, if he wasn't in the movie, I feel like the message across a lot more, because it's like, old girls trying to get promoted at work.
Hmm.
Um, but like, you'd think that they'd be like, oh yeah, it's because like they don't see her hair as like professional, even though she's been trying to wear it straight and
Yeah. Yeah.
and stuff like that for weeks, and just, trying to kind of look more like the boss. And it's just like, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that her boss is just sleeping with her man. And I'm just like, you guys came so close. Like, you came so close. So like, part of me is just like, I think, like, fundamentally, I think that like we don't know how to have those conversations in media. It's like, we don't
Yeah.
know how to write script. We don't know how to write scripts that don't come off as like super preachy when we talk about subjects like that. We have to make it like, well, she's not getting promoted because her boyfriend's sleeping with the boss.
But
Where it
see,
would have just been really easy.
that kind of like goes back to the conversation about like when we were talking about writing films before. Like, if
Mhm.
we write a script or a movie, like, or a script for a movie, I should say,
Yeah.
um we end up having to like have comedic moments in the movie. Like, it's never really a straight up, like, sometimes it's a straight up drama or a straight up horror. Even with bad hair, there were comedic moments in this movie, and I felt
Mhm.
like this movie was good without the comedic moments. It could literally go a long way with being a horror film, like a body horror film, like sort of like The
I
Fly or
agree.
something like that, without the
I agree.
comedy, you know.
Mhm.
But we had to
Yeah.
add that element of comedy in there with Lena Waithe, or like with Vanessa Williams, when she was
Yeah.
like, "Bitch, I don't know if the group is dealing with the same problem or not." Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, it's like for so there's all kinds of examples of like Black media where like you can see like where it was kind of done better. Like
yeah,
dear white people had a very interesting way of making like topics that are appropriate for that movie like entertaining, but also like they were able to like lean into it, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Which is easy. It's just accomplished by allowing characters to kind of like discuss things over time instead of like, you know, interjecting it with this. It's like, no, we have to remember to make it entertaining. We can't make it like, we can't be preachy anymore. We can't make movies where we're trying to like make a point. And I'm just like, I thought that's what movies were for. Like, I thought that was like the point was to, like, I thought the point was to like have a standpoint, and then the movie is supposed to like reinforce that standpoint. But I guess we're moving away from that. But it's like when you compare it to stuff like Get Out, which was like, you know, a major success.
Yeah,
Not just in Black media, but like in film in general. It's like Get Out never attempted to entertain you. Like,
nah.
Like
it did it.
Oh, he was making, yeah, it just did it on its own. Like he was making no attempts to be like, oh yeah, this is a horrible, horrifying situation. Let me have like a funny guy that comes in and like cracks jokes. It's like no, this is freaking horrific. He's trying to talk about how like white people literally want to be Black. That warrants exploration of like that concept as horror. So like I agree with you, man. Like Bad Hair could have been just a straightforward, like, you know, you could have gone full Cronenberg and made it like a full like body horror type film.
Yep.
In which I can see that would have lost its audience, but it would have become very culty. And for a lot of movies, it's like this could easily become a cult film overnight.
Oh yeah,
it's just like, oh dude, Black women are watching this at their sweet 16s or something, or like, you know, you're playing it at the Delta House or something like that. Like this could have been that movie, like super easy, but they dodged it. They made numerous attempts to kind of like not hammer that message into your head. They kind of like soft hammer, and then they kind of like walked away and moved on to the next thing, because I loved Vanessa Williams' role and I wanted more of her.
Oh yeah,
because like they didn't go into the whole like green blue eyes, like, you know, all that stuff, and I'm just like, oh, you should have done that.
Yeah
should have done it.
They definitely didn't touch base on a lot of things with like the actual moss hair and everything like that. I do like the fact that they did relate it to like Black folk tales, which I really do like, because I haven't seen many movies actually relate any mythological things into Black folk before, you know. And this is one of the few movies that actually did that, because we don't talk about Black folk tales like that.
It's Candyman and this and Bad Hair. Like that's it. That's all we have. It's like, I mean, what was it? The Skeleton Key, a little bit voodoo, but not based on like actual folklore. But like that's kind of interesting that it's like Candyman, Bad Hair. Like, and those movies are 30 years apart. Yeah, like,
facts.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right though, because I was gonna ask you if you thought that any of the folk elements were necessary.
Oh, like, they were definitely necessary.
Like yeah.
I mean, I felt like it also confuses things also, because I was definitely confused at the end.
Yep.
When you realize Mr. Grant, played by James Vanderbeek, was actually the guy who owned the moss tree, and his family has owned that tree for many years. And I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, we know like the tree and like the roots, it only survives by like drinking the blood of humans. Why are they putting dead bodies there if they're drained of all their blood? That didn't. I was kind of confused about that.
No clue, man. I mean, that's just screenwriting. I mean, like a movie like Bad Hair is hard to figure out an ending for it, but especially like one like that, because that ending it doesn't come out of nowhere, but like it feels like it's just kind of like tacked on.
Yeah,
like by the end of the movie, like your main character's story is kind of done. Like she doesn't really have too much of an arc left. And then that ending is kind of like, I didn't really feel necessary. Like, you know, like didn't really feel we needed it. But like, yeah, I mean, the folklore element is, it's like I mean, you know, back to what we were saying is like Black Americans have such a rich, like, I have an entire book of folklore on my shelf, you know, and it's crazy that we just don't tap into that stuff enough. And
that's
like
crazy.
Use it. You know?
That's crazy, because we should be tapping into that stuff. I mean, it's like if we want to put more emphasis on our culture and want to like show more appreciation for it and have other people kind of like celebrate it, why not tack on these things,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like we were saying before, man. It's like you have to do it right, and like you have to figure out who that audience is for. Like if you're a production company and you're spending millions of dollars on a movie, like your return on investment is based on who's gonna pay to watch it. So if you're making like if you're making a horror film set during Kwanzaa or something, like you've already excluded millions of people who have no idea what Kwanzaa is. And then you have to write a movie that educates them on it and then like presents it in a way that makes it acceptable for both sides. And like, you have to like, you're not getting a movie like that made unless it's like a true indie, $50,000 budget made on Kickstarter, and then like you hope it gets into a festival that understands it. Because like that's the thing is like our stories are hard to relay to a mass audience because of the way we have set up like entertainment. Is like we have our gatekeepers in place that are like they're focused on mass mean product. They want a product that everyone understands, which is why stuff like Shonda Rhimes, like Grey's Anatomy, anybody can watch that. Scandal, anybody can watch that. Bad Hair is very nichey, and it only appeals to people who kind of already understand like the Black experience from that perspective. Because like there's a lot going on in Bad Hair. There's a lot of stuff like her interactions with their parents are like more interesting than some of the stuff in the film where it's her dad reading the story of the moss tree to her and stuff like that, and like he's a college professor or whatever, and she's like the disappointing child because she went to go work in TV, and it's like those things are like important for us to have, because it's like how many times in the Black community have you seen where like the kids are doing pretty all right, but the parents are still disappointed that they didn't do something? And I'm just like, that's the interesting stuff right there. You could always tie that into like the discussion about her hair, because like they bring it up, they're like, oh, your hair's straight, and stuff like that. And they're not upset with her because she's not working the job they want. They're upset with her or disappointed because she's not doing it the way that she could be doing it. She's changing herself for her work environment. And that's the horror aspect of the movie, is that like you have to have blue eyes and she doesn't have those, and like you have to have straight hair. And I feel like they just don't lean into that enough. So like I wanted to take that journey. I was really excited for Bad Hair, and then I watched it and I was just like I was like let down, but like for my reasons, like because I really wanted the Rams to score 42 this game, not 36. They didn't win the way I wanted. So like I feel kind of bad about that, because like they made a movie that even dares to go here in the first place. Like Dear White People, it's like you made a movie that dared to go there. Like I can't really critique like you made this effort and no one else is like really having this conversation about like whether or not blackface is like an appropriate thing, which is something that we do need to talk about. And then like Bad Hair is just like, should we allow women to wear braids in the workplace? And like the answer is yes, but like I think all that comes from like before you write your script, you're supposed to kind of sit down and like think about what the answers to the questions you're trying to ask are. Because that's how you end up with a Jay Farrow character who just like just like distracts from like what your story is. And
I swear his character I felt like was kind of overly sexualized, because out of all like the characters that were male, he was the typical Black male, hypersexual, hyper masculine, not really taking charge. He was kind of like timid. Well, not really timid, but more passive and what have you. Kind of like all the tropes of stereotype about Black men,
They tried, they kind of walked that tightrope of like the whole like, Black men only exist in the workplace to be fetishized thing. But it's just like, dude, I even as soon as I kind of like caught on to that, I kind of like pulled away from it, and I was like, y'all got to focus on a movie. That's a whole separate that's a whole separate movie right there. Y'all gotta focus on one, Like either he's being used as the office boy toy and he's not aware of it, like, you know, or like you know, stuff that like Malcolm Jamal Warner has brought up, you know, about like black men in like Hollywood and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, you're either using him like that or he's like the comic relief. Like you got to pick one. You can't be throwing theme after theme after theme after theme at me, because we're never going to get to an ending. You know, this is a movie about hair. Focus on the hair. And then for the sequel, you can make it, you know, you can have your like Don John movie or whatever.
Yeah.
bring back Vanessa Williams and the hairstylist and all those characters, and we can discuss that further.
I do like the fact in this movie they did use water as a sense of like the hair's weakness, you know, because what do black women talk about when they get their hair done? Don't wet my hair. Don't wet it.
Don't get it wet. Yeah, I love that. I think that was I love that, man. Getting in the tub. Yeah, because I remember that your little cousin or whatever does your hair in the sink.
Yeah.
I laughed pretty hard at that stuff. It's like I said, I was like, I didn't hate it. I watched it twice. And like the second time around, I got a little bit more out of it than I did the first time. But like, you know, there were still some parts that made me laugh. So then like the parts that confused me just confused me more. It's like we were saying, like the opening job interview where she goes to interview for the radio station that's like an alt rock station or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I get that the movie's trying to make that point of like, oh yeah, like this might have, you know, she didn't get the job because of racism. And I'm like, well, she probably didn't get the job because she doesn't have the appearance that they're looking for. And I think that's a different thing, right? Like I was saying, you know, it's like I don't go to country music television, like when like, you know, grow my hair out, braid it down, and then like try to retain like my image, you know, and like go to CMT and be like, hey, I'd like to be your next host of like the top 30 countdown.
Yeah,
like, well, no, they have a certain image that looks like some of that might be racial, but it's like, you know, you ain't right for that when you apply for it. like you knew that. Like you don't apply to a job you know you're not gonna get specifically to poke at racism. And I was like, that's kind of a clunkily written opening scene that the movie could have done without, or there could have been a better way to do it, to where it's just like it is a black radio station or something. It's like KJLH or something like that, and she didn't get the job because her hair is straight. You know what they should have did, like something that was similar to the job she already had and got rejected for that job because she didn't have like the good hair appearance and what have you. Exactly. I was like, that would have been a much better use of the movie, because it's like she's been working this job where she's had to change herself, and then the job she gets rejected from wants her to be natural. Yeah, like that's what I would have expected. Is just like, oh well, we, you know, here at, you know, K whatever radio station, we want, you know, braids. Would you mind growing your hair out? And she's just like, no, I don't feel comfortable, or something like that. And then she goes back and you see that like all the black women have straight hair. Her boss has green eyes, you know, like you know, the idol that they all worship is a pop singer who's got, you know, deep demonic hair and stuff like that. And and like you kind of see, and I was like, that would have been a really good juxtaposition. Is just like, you know, she gets rejected by honesty and ends up having to go back to this kind of like fake place. But they you know, I didn't write the script, you know, so they didn't call me up when they made it.
So, quick question. So, where do you think this film lies in the spectrum of like other black horror films? Like, do you think this is going to be a film that we are going to revisit and just be like, you know what, this film wasn't that bad? Do you think it's going to be a skip it for all the bad reasons that you mentioned? Like, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I don't know. Okay. So it's gonna be hard to make this film culty because it's an original from a streaming service. It's not like it had like a Blu-ray release or something like that to where we can like distribute it. I think that it has an audience because like I've talked to other people who liked it. So like it's a likable movie. It's entertaining. It has some type of message that it's trying to convey. But like I think it's fine. Like to me it's just kind of run of the mill like it's like mediocre horror with like a really good thematic like premise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's like kind of like the opposite of Hereditary, to where like Hereditary is like technically a bad horror movie with like a really good story. Like terrible at the horror part, but really good at the like family drama stuff. So it's like it's on that spectrum, to where it's like, oh yeah, this is a fine, okay horror film, but like the points it's trying to make are really good. So like I wouldn't say skip it. I would say don't skip it. You should watch it. But whether or not we're gonna look back on this movie in like 10 years and be like, oh, we can perform like an analytical survey of like where Black media was in 2020, and like by using Bad Hair as an example, it's like, I don't know if we can do that. Maybe it'll find an audience 5 years from now that like blows it up to where they're looking at stuff like this. Not for me, but like, it's not like a Waiting to Exhale or something.
Oh
like,
God. Waiting to Exhale.
Because like I bring that up because like it's rare that Black movies are made. They're relatively rare. 2, it's rare that Black movies are made that are women facing.
Yeah.
And 3, it's even rarer that it's a horror film that's feminine facing.
Yeah.
Not like stuff like Waiting to Exhale is like a horror film or anything. But for like women-centric films that focus on like Black America, those are relatively rare, and like Bad Hair does fit in that space. In a weird way, it kind of like shoves itself in there, but like but like,
it's Get Out. It's no Get Out.
It's not Get Out
up there.
No. It's not Get Out. It's not Candyman. It's not anything. It's not anything like that. It's not trying to be either.
No. But it is definitely a step over Antebellum.
What I do think is going to happen is like you might get emulators, and that's sometimes that's the best you can hope for, is that this movie is seen by someone who's 18, 19, 20, who's probably a little bit, that's probably more the target audience than me. Even though like that movie is full 90s and like there's some really like Gen Z, Gen Y type millennial jokes in there that like people younger.
That's what I noticed too, because they were talking about Black Girl Magic, and I'm like, no one said Black Girl Magic in the 80s or the 90s.
I was gonna say, I was like it's like the Soul Glow commercial film. I was like watching it. I was like, did they say Black Girl Magic? I was like, I don't remember anybody saying that when I was growing up. That's weird. Okay, I guess it's a Black Girl Magic kind of show. But no, I mean, like it's I think that it'll inspire some like people who want to like tell stories like that, these kind of like niche type of like horror films about the Black experience, because Get Out already did that. About like the cultural horror that Black people experience.
Black guy dating a white girl, meeting their family for the first time. Getting bombarded with all these weird questions.
Yeah, we've talked about that, because like Get Out is pretty much, it's 2 horror films. It's like, one is like the horror of meeting an interracial parents, and then the horror of like socio-culturally you are desired in like the worst way, is like you're wanted for reasons that you're not aware of. And like, so like Bad Hair fits into that, like, the only type of horror that relates to Black people is cultural horror. You can only talk about like, man, wouldn't it suck to be a slave again? Like, those are the only types of like horror movies we can tell. Like, and if that's the case, I mean, like, there's ways in which you can watch like Dear White People as a horror film too. Like if you watch it a certain way and like focus on certain scenes, but like stuff like that, that's where it fits. Is what I would say. So don't skip it. Like definitely watch it, support it, but also like, I guess it's emulate it and try to improve on what it tried to do.
Definitely.
That's what I would say. Is like, make your own Bad Hair and do it better.
What? What's funny? And I don't know if you noticed this, because I've watched the film like many times. Did you notice how like in the film, the bad hair that was killing everybody, the bodies that were being taken by James Vanderbeek's character, he was taking all the Black bodies, but he didn't do anything with the white bodies, which I found was very interesting. And I don't know why they put that in the film. I don't know what it's supposed to mean.
You tell me.
I don't even know.
I don't know.
I mean, I feel like
earlier. I asked you earlier if you thought that the folklore element was necessary because, like, to me, I didn't think you needed it. I think it could have been a straightforward tale of like you could have just HP Lovecrafted it. You could have just said that this is like a hair thing, a hair tonic that has an unknown origin that causes this effect. I didn't need to know like that it came from like a tree, that especially if we're not going to like fully explore that tree, you know,
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff like
They
that. Like
didn't.
we're not really going to like dig in. Yeah, we're not going to like dig into this movie. So
They
like a
did
lot of
cop
that
it
is kind of
out
like,
though. They did cop it
yeah,
out. Like when he was like, well, when Anna, she was asking like, well, what do we know about the tree? Like, what do we know about the hair? Like, is it magic? Is it like something? And Blair Underwood's character was like, we don't know. We don't know.
yeah. Yeah,
Like,
just say you don't know. I think that in horror films that makes it better. If you have no clue what's going on, your characters are that's more horror. That's more horrific. I'm able to jump on that journey. But now that I know, like me finding out that like the hair tonic comes from a tree that basically kills people, essentially, and has like a cool origin behind it. Like I like the origin story of it.
yeah, I do too.
I don't like that we saw it. You know, and but that's just me. It's like if her dad had cracked open that book and been like, "Oh, let me tell you about this tree," and then like closed it, and we never heard from it again. So that way, it's kind of ambiguous as to whether like her hair stuff is coming from that or not. I think that would have made a slightly better movie because like unless like y'all just hit up James Vanderbeek and we were like, "Do you want to be in the movie? We need to make a role for you. Like we need you to. You haven't done anything in a while, so like, do you want to be in this?" And like just be this kind of like dude who just buries bodies in the tree. I don't know. I like the burying the black bodies instead of maybe they're trying to make a point on black people consume other black people for their own success. I don't know. That's the closest I got to trying to interpret that.
That's a good way of thinking though, like a good analogy, because that's literally what was happening in the film, like just black people trying to get over black people. You know, it wasn't much helping each other.
Yeah, and like it's a white guy that's doing it. I mean, I guess if that's the point they were trying to make, I mean, like then they succeeded. I cracked the code, I guess. But I just didn't see it as necessary. It's like you're trying to add a lot of social commentary that like you've already missed the opportunity to do, like with the movie itself. Like why use that element specifically to like you could have done that specifically with just Anna and her boss and no one else, you know. I was more along the lines of like the hairdresser.
Oh yeah, she just disappeared throughout the rest of the film.
I would have been completely fine if it was just her. Like if you just find out that she's just like got this hair tonic and like that's why she's so successful. I was like, you're kind of making the same point there, but now you're already using a character that's established in the movie. To where she's just like, oh, the reason I created this like super crazy pop star is because like I made this hair tonic, you know, and people are like, well, what's in it? She's like, I'm not gonna tell you. You know? And then you can have like a throwaway shot at the end, like the classic horror stinger of like, you know, James Vanderbeek burying bodies under the tree, and then like we can be like, what is that? What is happening? Like, you know, I think that probably would have been an easier way to go about it. But you're right, she just disappears and like never comes back. Like just kind of like does her hair once or twice, gets asked a couple questions, and then that was it. That's kind of like where that went. I was like, oh, okay, all right. Cool character. I'm glad she's gone.
Right. All right, so we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna take a break real quick, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about the ideal black person to be represented in film and opportunities. So yeah, like you should say in a scary movie, we'll be right back. And we are back. And I am back with my guest, Jeremy, part of Northern Tier. So yeah, if you guys want to follow him, he is on Instagram, Northern Tier Actual. And what's the Twitter?
Twitter is lastpage_kills.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a bit of an interesting topic, still on the topic of horror. I know everyone comes in for the horror talk, but this one's a little bit more broader than horror because it just relates to the film industry and just, well, multiple industries in general, really. But we're going to talk about representation and opportunities for the Black women or just black people
black
in general.
Yeah, more broadly, all black people, all of them.
Yeah, what kind of sparked this topic really was just this meme that you sent me the other day about like the black people starter package. If you could go into details about that for me, please.
Yeah, so there's this starter pack that was made like months ago, that popped up on like Reddit. It started from Black Twitter about like black but not too black in movies.
Yeah,
starter pack, which is like a thing that we deal with, that we like discuss often, is like black but not too black. But like basically it goes into like, you know, like what types of hairstyles are allowed, like the black men that we portray. It's like every movie has Daniel Kaluuya in it. Yeah. You know, like where dark skinned women fit in. There's only 2 of them in Hollywood. And then like, you know, basically the hairstyles that are acceptable if you're like light skinned. So like I saw the starter pack and I started a conversation with some friends at school who agreed with it. We had like some interesting debates and like some back and forth and stuff about like black portrayals in the media. But like ultimately, like when people started thinking about it, they were like, oh yeah, like all the girls on Netflix got the same hairstyle. Like, you know, and like I bring it up sometimes where I'm just like, oh, Netflix hair, and like people don't understand why I say that. And I'm just like, watch Netflix. If she a light skinned girl, she got frizzy baby curls and or heavy braids. Like those are the only 2 styles that they allow. And then we were talking about hair earlier, bad hair, on how like, you know, we're just like, I'm talking like within the past couple months of people saying like, I finally got to wear braids to work, yay, because like up until then, like, you know, natural hairstyles and stuff have not been considered to be professional for whatever reason.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense really, because it's like, what does that got to do with your job performance?
Nothing. It has everything to do with how you're seen. And I think it just comes from people not understanding like hair as identity. And you know, larger, broader, but different episode of your podcast would be talking about like black identity as it relates to hair, because like that's a whole other thing. in that like maybe, you know, maybe not allowing certain hairstyles in the workplace is an effort to erase black identity, which like it's one of my gripes with bad hair is that it didn't go into that. So,
like it definitely didn't go into that too much. Like it partially kind of went into it when they were talking about like, girl, what you doing with your hair? We need to change that up and all that, you know.
Yeah, only a little bit after she like jacked her hair up and went to the hairdresser. But no, I mean like we can discuss that type of stuff, because we go to, if you were to watch like Netflix or something, if you hadn't had any black diaspora, with like black people in America specifically, because like I don't know how this relates to like black people living in Europe or anything like that. But like for black Americans and stuff, and then you watch like shows on Netflix, you watch things on YouTube, and you start to see what types of skin tones and what hair is like acceptable, successful. You might start to believe that like the identity of black women is being changed to fit another perspective on black women. So like whether we can call that fetishization or not, I'm not quite sure. We'd have to consult a critical theorist or something, like someone more well versed in like critical analysis of race. But to me, I think that's what it looks like to me, is that there are black women we find attractive, and then there are black women we find acceptable, and I think those are 2 separate categories. You know. We sexualize Zoe Kravitz and like Zazie Beetz because they're light skinned and they've got like, you know, I think they're both half white, so like I think they have the more brownish kind of like curlyish hair. And then,
you know, those were the 2 people I was thinking of when we were going on about, when I was kind of like making the notes about this topic and just coming up with the questions. And when I saw the starter pack, those were literally the 2 people I mainly first thought of, like, also, you know, throwing in Zendaya, you know.
Zendaya too, man. She's she's right in that category, man. She's basically Zoe Kravitz 2.0 at this point.
Oh
Only
yeah.
only certain kind of roles, only across the screen from certain kinds of actors. What's his name? Tom Holland. What's the dude? What's Spider-Man's name, man?
Yeah, Tom Holland.
Yeah, there you go, that one. Yeah, but I mean, like as for them, I mean, like we've been talking about that. I mean, like what was it like in the late '90s and early 2000s? It was Will Smith, but he's always only across the screen from Latina women.
Yeah, well, you know what? They were doing that like in the 90s too. With like the black men, it was always Will Smith or Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington, man.
It was literally Denzel or Will Smith. Then, like in the 2000s, it was Terrence Howard or Don Cheadle.
Yep. And, still is kind of.
It still is. It still is. But you know, now we're moving away, and it's going to Daniel Kaluuya or Michael Ealy. Sometimes Lakeith Stanfield, but not so much. You know,
Lakeith is so underrated though. Like he needs more leading roles, but like the roles he gets ain't got nothing to do with like his association with women. I mean, like I was a big fan of Sorry to Bother You, which is funny enough kind of closer to Bad Hair. Like now that I think about it, I think those are kind of the same. Like changing yourself in order to fit your workplace, and basically like losing your identity. But the thing with like Sorry to Bother You, and the thing that made that movie harder to like is into it. You know, like it went full on. It's just like, you know, when they start talking about you have to put on your white voice, you know. Like, and they actually do it. They don't just like dance around it and anything. Like it becomes an element of the film. Whereas like with Bad Hair, they kind of like, no, not all the way. So like, you know, that goes back to what we're saying is like back to that is like those are the things that we need to be doing with movies, is making more like Sorry to Bother Yous and like, you know, emulating Bad Hair. Have you watched stuff on like Freeform, like Good Trouble and those kind of like hyper diverse?
No, I haven't gotten an opportunity to watch stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to talk about those movies because your podcast is primarily horror, but that's
well,
what
probably a horror movie seeing like how movies are presented.
all movies from a Black perspective are horror films. they're all scary, all of them.
Yo, it kind of reminds me of like when I was in college. Not to cut you off, but I had a teacher for this Pan-African Studies class, and he will always say that the movie Precious was a horror movie. It was just a straight up horror movie.
It is. Precious a horror film. That's a scary movie, man. Like that should terrify any Black girl who's under the age of 18. That's a scary ass film. I agree with him. But I mean, like that's what we were saying over the break, is like, you know, like can we make a horror film that is like without social commentary, or can we make it to where like there's no like cultural analysis? And I was like, I don't think we can. Because it's like the Black experience in America is a horror. Where it's like you can watch stuff like Queen and Slim and be like, yeah, this is rooted in reality. It's like this is like any police experience can go wrong, and that's what makes it horrific. Where it's like if you're any other ethnicity in the United States, your horror films are things that like are supposed to scare all Americans. So like your horror films end up being like having this like subtextual, like it's about the fear of communism, or like promiscuous teenagers, or the fear of not being able to sleep, and like stuff like that, which is like super broad. And then like for like Black horror films, it's like you watch stuff like Get Out, and if that's your introduction into like horror films or the Black diaspora is of main concern, then like the things we're talking about in Get Out are like being replaced and like being copied and like being wanted, but like not because you are loved, but being wanted because people want to be you, and also like eradicate you in a way. And like even like Bad Hair kind of like touches on that a little bit if you watch it a certain way, of like, you know, losing your identity and stuff like that. Like those are things we're actually afraid of. It's like just like not being Black anymore, which is like stuff that you like, you know, same joke from earlier is like I can leave the house for 15 minutes and come back and have a horror film like ready to write. You know, I don't have to like create adversity in my life. I don't have to like make up an obstacle and be like, there's a demon in my basement and he's trying to eat me. And like,
yeah,
I don't need to do that, man. I can just go talk to a cop and like, and be like, well, I'm scared. Like, let's go. You know? And I think that those things are valid. I mean, like, you know, movies about the LA riots, for instance, like for some Black people, that's a horrific incident that affected us. That is,
oh yeah,
prescient and actually existed. So like that's a horror film. It's like living a night through a riot, you know.
Yeah.
So like we ain't really got to go too far, man. Bad hair is bad hair is stuff we're already talking about, you know.
Yep. Yeah. So here's my question: do you think there's more opportunities given to light-skinned women when it comes to women in like the film industry? Do you think there's more opportunities being presented to light-skinned women compared to dark-skinned women?
Well, we see more of them.
Yeah.
But like we have to, there's so many like things we'd have to like take into consideration as to whether it's like if there's equal opportunity among actresses, which like I guess like post Weinstein, we know that there is not.
Oh no, there's definitely not.
Is like which ones are we seeing more? Are we seeing more Zendaya's or are we seeing more of what's her name? Oh god. Oh no.
I'm throwing Lupita out there because she's
Lupita. Yeah, there you go, Lupita. Are we seeing more Lupitas? It's like no, there's only one of her, but there's like 10 to 15 Zoe Kravitzes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that might just be because like those types of talents are kind of like once in a lifetime type of things. Cecily Tyson recently just passed, and I was thinking about like whether or not she had other opportunities, but it's like Cecily Tyson is like a once in a lifetime type of talent, like one of the best actresses to have ever lived. So it's like in a world where Cecily Tyson exists, your competition is like is just fierce. It's like, you know, Alfre Woodard, for instance, is like she's a talent unto herself, and she's dark skinned and stuff, and she's also older now. But it's like, you know, Zoe Kravitz ain't trying to get the roles that Alfre Woodard is getting. You know, like Alfre Woodard is doing like hard hitting dramas and stuff like that. She's doing you know, she's doing movies that like actually matter. So I mean, like in some ways we can look at it and be like, well, all of the roles, all of the Viola Davises.
Yeah, which is another great actress.
Yeah, like all of the Viola Davises are getting their roles, and all of the light-skinned girls are getting theirs. And never shall the two, you know, like I don't know. Maybe it would be cool to see Zazie Beetz and Fences. I don't know. Who knows? Like maybe we can put Zendaya in like movies like Clemency and stuff like that. But or like we can do like a Purple remake, and we can put Zendaya in it, and like maybe but I mean, like, yeah, it's like when you think of like women who are doing it, it seems like they do it in a vacuum.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to get to is like Whoopi Goldberg existed by herself, only dark-skinned actress.
Oh, she did. I remember as a kid, like there was a lot of films I saw Whoopi Goldberg in, and I didn't see anybody else that really looked like Whoopi.
Yeah, no one at all. Alfre Woodard, same thing. Viola Davis, same thing. It's like she's always like by herself, except in movies like, you know, like Widows or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah. So I would say that we're seeing more representation amongst like light-skinned women. There could be reasons for that, and then we're seeing limited representation for women with darker skin. Some people would say that like both matter and both are equally valid, so like it kind of doesn't matter because they're both getting represented. This would be especially problematic if it was only light-skinned women and then we just had like Viola Davis.
Yeah.
And but like the fact that they're all getting represented is a good thing, I guess. But like there's definitely over-representation of like the light-skinned, frizzy-haired.
There definitely is.
Like usually confirmed to be half white type of like actress in Hollywood.
Do you think it's more? I'm sorry to cut you off, but do you think it's more because of like the aesthetic look of like a light-skinned woman is more like, I guess, comforting for like somebody who is not within the Black community?
No, I think Yeah, I think that like even if we go back further in time, 50 or so years, like if you look at like Sammy Davis juniors and like Sidney Poitier's, where they were like kind of like lighter skinned dudes,
Hmm.
they matriculated into Hollywood a lot better, not just because they were talented, but because they kind of like looked the part. Because this is like
Yeah, yeah,
if you look at like white American stereotypes of like black Americans, to where it's like we've been kind of conditioned to believe that darker skin is bad,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
less acceptable, further away, more difficult to reach.
Hmm.
Then like you kind of don't want to cast darker skinned people, because if you think that they're all just threatening, I mean, like it's the Tyler Perry effect. If all of your antagonists in your movies are bald black dudes, right? Then
Wait,
like
dark skinned, bald
dark
headed black
skinned bald headed black guys, then
from
like
Law and Order.
yeah, if all of the bad dudes in your movie are bald headed, dark skinned black guys, then like you start to kind of create this narrative that that is an unacceptable way to be
Yeah,
as an actor, and that there's acceptable, and then there's like successful, and the successful ones are lighter skinned like actresses. I probably wouldn't venture to guess that they're like making as much money, if any, more than other actresses in their same category. But like, yeah, I mean, there's probably a reason you don't see Viola Davis more. One is probably because her roles are highly selective. Um,
hmm,
but
which they should be. I
yeah,
mean, she deserves that,
yeah,
honestly.
she's a phenomenon. There's nothing, there's no one's down that. But it's like there aren't more Viola Davises, and that's probably because like dark skinned women have never been fetishized in the same way that light skinned girls have.
Yeah,
And I mean, like we can, and it's just like I said, we can see that in like who's represented most. And that's why I was asking if you've ever seen stuff like Good Trouble, because like there are no dark skinned people in that show, as even
mm,
as much as they claim to be like this type of like hyper diverse nirvana of culture.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
all of the people of color are of lighter skin complexions and have like roughly the same hairstyles, and they have the same identity, they act the same, they believe the same things. And there's no diversity among those specific POCs. Like I know that Zazie Beetz and Viola Davis are different people. They have separate identities. I think Hollywood has been trying to craft a unified identity for Black people for a very long time.
hmm,
Um, and they kind of want it to look like lighter skinned women, maybe. Who
yeah,
knows? You know,
yeah,
because that's all I'm seeing on TV. You know,
yeah.
so
Yeah, I feel like the light skin, and there's nothing wrong with light skinned women. I mean,
yeah, no,
none at
I don't
all.
want anybody to think that I'm talking
none,
about.
none at all. None at all. I know, like, for, within the culture, it's always been that whole, oh, you light skin, blah, blah, this, that, and the other. And it's always that light skin, dark skin war. But no, it's nothing wrong with that. But it is a fact that we got to admit there is a look that sometimes Hollywood is going for if they want to cast like a black person in film or in television or in anything. They want to go for somebody that looks more like Zendaya, more racially ambiguous, someone that's like a little bit more, I guess, less threatening or more relatable for like the broader audience,
Yeah.
which is fine. But it's like, who's to say that dark skinned person that's as dark as Lupita Nyong'o or Viola Davis or even Octavia Spencer isn't relatable, you know?
I mean, you already said it though. It's like lighter skin tones are not as threatening, and I think that comes more from cultural conditioning than like
Yeah.
anything else. Is to where like looking at like police reports, like well, darker skinned people of color get arrested more than lighter skinned people of color, and like have lower success rates in court and stuff like that. And like this goes into like a kind of like a root, type of cause for all this is like who's acceptable in American culture
Mm-hmm.
and who isn't. And it's like people, someone like Zendaya, who is not only like talented for like the roles that she gets.
Well, she is deserving for her roles.
Yeah, no, yeah, she ain't getting her roles because she's light skinned, and
Mm-hmm.
I think we're being very clear about that. But it's easier to market her to
Yeah.
like people in Kansas, or like to people in like one of the Dakotas or something, because she looks what they expect to look.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you believe as a film producer, or like even as like a casting director, narrow that down. that Viola Davis to some people looks threatening or something,
Yeah.
even though she might be the best one for the role, then like you might end up going for, you know, who was that on the Cosby Show that was like kind of, was that Tempest Bledsoe or
Oh
whatever?
yeah,
And like,
yeah, yeah.
and they were like that, you know, she got like stuff thrown at her for, they were just like, oh, casting light skinned girls in CBS shows and blah, blah. And that was like back in the 90s, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, Tempest Bledsoe is a good actress, and hate to bring up Cosby, but like Cosby liked her as an actress, and like she fit the role very well.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was also cast alongside Zoe Kravitz's mom, freaking oh god, what's her name?
Yeah, I can't remember her name.
Oh man, I had like that, my pretty much one of my only like show crushes. Lisa Bonet.
Oh, Lisa Bonet, light skin. She was.
Yeah, so Lisa Bonet was like the prototypical light skin actress.
She was. Yes, she was.
And I mean, like, that, I think that might not be where it started, but like for people our age, like that's where it's at. It's just like, as much talent that was on stuff like the Cosby Show, the characters that got the most attention was Lisa Bonet. Like, she's the one who ended up going to do the modeling and had a rock star boyfriend, Zoe Kravitz, and got kicked off the show because she posed like it was Lisa Bonet, like it was a Lisa Bonet show, all the way up into like a different world. And which was a spinoff, which had more light-skinned actresses in it because they were trying to replicate the Lisa Bonet effect. Yeah, so it's like even when you went to stuff like that portrayal kept going to where they're just like, whoa, America likes Lisa Bonet. Like they Lisa Bonet is what gets across, and like I think someone saw that there was like a racial element to that, and was just like, cast more light-skinned actresses. So like I think that's kind of like where it started, is like, if you're a Tempest Bledsoe, Viola Davis, you look like kind of threatening. We can't really sexualize you in the same way. We can't which
is ridiculous.
It's stupid, and like I hope I'm incorrect, but it's just like, we can only go on what we observe, and like there's more Lisa Bonets represented on TV than, I mean, hell, her daughter. Like Zoe Kravitz is an actress, and she's been pretty successful as in what she's been doing, but like, she's like her mom. She's getting some roles that like kind of are the same way. And Zendaya is there too, and we're not seeing dark-skinned Viola Davis's, you have the one girl on Blackish, and like, I guess arguably you have what's her face from Insecure.
Oh my god, I had
Issa Rae, dude.
There we go. Oh my god,
I was like, Issa Rae. and her best friend on that show also.
Yeah.
So I mean all representation I think is fine. But like I don't want it to seem like there's a narrative being crafted in which like only certain types of skin tones are acceptable.
Yeah. I only asked because I was watching like a video on YouTube that kind of like examined the Disney Channel and like the Black actresses that come out of the Disney Channel. And a lot of the actresses like Raven-Symoné, Zendaya, they managed to have somewhat successful careers, but they still struggle like with different companies just for being Black, and like darker skinned females like Keke Palmer or China McClain, they struggle a lot more than their light-skinned counterparts, because they're a little bit more darker, and I guess they're a little bit more harder to market within anything else than what they're doing. So
yeah, well, I mean, think about Lauren London,
Oh yeah. She was like the hottest thing back in like what, 2004, 2005, and she just disappeared.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we had, because like we can name, because like there were niches for success, and like this was easier to point at when like UPN existed. But like UPN also had the same problem of like casting like light skinned actresses and presenting this kind of like image to like Black America that like light skin is what's acceptable. Because shows like what was it, Half and Half or whatever, and we had like Kyla Pratt on her show on that network. And even in like when you got movies like ATL, Lauren London, so like the acceptable skin tones, or like the ones that you saw the most of, I should say, were lighter skinned women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though we knew that women with darker skin existed in the show. And
Oh
like
yeah.
I always chalk that up to like marketability, is like how difficult a show would have been to market with like a lead actress that doesn't look like most of America.
All right. So kind of going back to what you said, like about, why not this person? Why not that person? And this is like the biggest interesting question I have, because it does stick to like representation.
Yeah.
Do you think we could rehash characters as a different race? Like, depending whether it's film, cartoons, comics, whatever type of media it is, can we rehash characters as a different race?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you feel that?
Yes. Topic done. Ask me a different question.
I mean, it's like, yes. Yes. Next question.
Great show, Jeremy. You're a great guest. Yeah. So, like, specifically, you're asking, like, could we take like a character like the Little Mermaid and make her not white?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course you can, because the people who engage with media want to see media that looks like them.
Yeah.
So like that's like a thing that pisses off fanboys, is that like, MJ is black now, is black now, because in the comics she was always white, and like you're changing like the character in some way. But there's some things that you can throw at those people to like ask some like really, really interesting questions of them, which is just like, Mary Jane Watson, and at least in my readings of like Spider-Man comics, was never like idealized as a white girl. Like she was never like staunchly like supposed to be like a straight up white character. She was just drawn as white because that's what she was drawn as. She could have been anyone. She's literally named Mary Jane.
Yeah.
She's every girl. She's every girl. Like that's just how she is.
It's a very generalized name if you think about Mary Jane Watson. She could be white. Yeah. She could be black.
Yeah, exactly. She could be anything. I mean, like we were talking earlier, there's some problems with like keeping that character's name a secret in the first movie and not revealing it all the way, because you're not sure how it's going to land that Mary Jane's not white anymore.
Yeah.
Which is like, shame on you, Sony. But no, of course you can. I mean, like, Disney's probably the biggest issue of this, because like you brought it up earlier, Disney has always had a problem with internal representation. Their external representation, I think, is fine. If not, probably not entirely sincere, is that they seem to do more cash-ins of diversity and culture than they try to do like actual representation. But like the most we can do is look at companies like that and be like, well, at least they're doing it, at least they're trying. And I guess in like a post-truth world that we live in now, like there's no way to like accurately like sincerely do anything that seems to be like racist. It's like, you've already damaged that reputation. So like if Disney could make 15 black only films next year and we'd still be like, fake, like they don't really mean it. So like instead we look at it and we're just like, well, we got the Princess and the Frog, we should just be happy with that. We finally got a black princess almost 100 years after Disney's existence.
I mean, but she had to get turned into a frog though, whereas like all the other princesses, they they're getting kissed and they're just fine, they're not being transformed into anything.
Yeah. But no, of course you can. I think that if we're doing diverse media now, if we're trying to make movies that tell the story of us rather than the story of some, then like you kind of want to make media that looks like the kids that watch it. The Little Mermaid is a mermaid. She's not even human. So like it doesn't matter what her skin, it doesn't matter what her skin color is.
It's ridiculous that people are having a problem with this. I'm like, she's a mermaid.
Yeah, and like what's funny about it is that these are the same people who will say that like blackface is not problematic.
And
then be like pissed off that like Disney is making a movie about Polynesian culture or something like that. Like with like, you know, like why is Disney making movies about Hawaiians and stuff? Like Lilo and Stitch doesn't accurately portray Hawaiian people and shit. And I'm just like, it's like, yeah, you guys need to calm down. It's like, I mean, there's no right way to represent diversity. The only thing you can do is like try. It's just like you can watch a show like Good Trouble or, you know, the Bold Type and be like, this is stupid, but like they're trying to do like a representation of diversity, and it's insane because what you end up getting is like every character is like gay, half black, like excessively progressive, like liberal politics, and like also like hyper successful, you know, like they're just you get these like weird things. So like the most you can do is make like a Princess and the Frog and try to do that in as honest a way as possible. Because like I liked that movie. Like I liked it. I thought it was good. But like I think that what would be more problematic is redoing the Princess and the Frog with a white princess. Is like getting rid of Tiana and making her like, I don't know, like Russian or something like that. We'd probably take more offense. We'd probably take more offense with taking characters that are people of color already and making them white. Than we would the other way. Which is why I think that should be fine.
I was just thinking, like, yo, if they remade Mulan, like, you know how they already have like a live action Mulan, but what if they took Mulan and made her black or something like that? Like, what are y'all doing? Like, that's intentionally trying to make diversity, and it's very insincere.
That's manufactured diversity, and that's never sincere. And that's what I'm saying. It's like if it's specifically fitting to a culture, it's like, I mean, making Aladdin white would probably be a problem.
Oh yeah, come on now.
Yeah, but making like Ariel black is probably not, and like that's a weird double standard. But like,
but it's like the character doesn't really have a specific race or origin, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, like for instance, like, you know, a story like Cinderella, to where like if you were to break that down to like its basic fun, like basic thematic elements, is like it's a princess story.
Yeah.
So like if your character's requirements are that you just need a princess, then like skin tone, race, ethnicity, none of that stuff should matter, right?
Yeah.
It only matters to people like us because we're cynical and like and know that Disney is lying to us. So like if they were to go back and visit Cinderella and be like, we're gonna make Cinderella but black, I was like,
well, okay, they did that with Brandy. I don't know if you remember that movie.
You're right. Oh man, they did do that.
Yeah, they did that with Brandy and Whitney Houston. It was like literally all black cast.
Yeah, and even speaking of stuff like that, I mean, The Wiz, for instance, was, you know, but like, yeah, so like they've done that before, but like I'm thinking even in like modern, so like in
I get what you mean.
In today's times, like if we were to go back and look at like Beauty and the Beast and make it like an all black cast or something like that, which
they could actually do that because there's no specific origin. You know, Belle is really in to where like they couldn't do that.
She's just French.
And there's French black people. Like you're gonna say there's no black people in France? Like
she's just French. But I mean, like even then, it's a fairy tale. It's not supposed to be realistic. We don't have to even examine like whether or not black people exist in a space and time. We can just say they're black. A good example of like how that's being handled today is stuff like Bridgerton on Netflix, to where it's just like flagrantly inaccurate with like racial portrayals in the Regency era, but like that's not the point. Like Shonda Rhimes is basically saying that these roles are pretty much just fillers. Anyone can play them, so just cast people to play them. Which is where people are like, oh, this is the Regency era. There were no like black people didn't own land in England, and like they definitely weren't dukes and duchesses, and like the Queen Catherine was definitely not black. Like, well, in Bridgerton she is. So you're just gonna have to deal with that. She's dead. I'm sure she doesn't mind. It
does create like a positive outlook for kids, you know, that watch that show, and they be like, oh, we got a black queen.
If you were born like Princess and the Frog's kind of old now. So like if you were born like 10 years ago and you grew up engaging with Disney media, which 90% of kids will. If you grow up watching TV shows and movies where the characters look like you, but also interact with people that don't look like you, your understanding what diversity is from like a media standpoint. You're not growing up watching shows like I did, to where it's just like shows are either all black or all white.
Oh, yeah.
Every show is either Living Single or like
Full House.
or Full House. Like that's it. Those are your only two options: Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or Friends. Like, there is no middle ground. So it's just like, guys like me and you, like, we didn't grow up watching TV shows where like the characters looked like us. They were either all us or not.
Yeah.
And even then, like, there's something that kind of like pushed you to like not watch shows that didn't have characters that look like you. So like, I didn't watch Friends.
I didn't either. I didn't like Friends. I still don't like Friends.
I still don't. Watching it as an adult is just not funny to me. But that's like, that's specifically like 90s kids thing. So like, I'm happy that like now kids are growing up watching things with like more like representative media. Like, do it. Make the Little Mermaid, make her black. 10 years from now, make her Asian. do it every 10 years. You should re-represent your media. And present it so that people grow up with it and understand what diversity actually looks like. But don't remake Lilo and Stitch. don't
cast a white person.
I think it's less problematic to make it a person of color. It's way more problematic to take a person of color and make them white. And they're, you don't do that.
Like make Black Panther white.
Holy crap, dude. Yeah, I mean, like those Scarlett Johansson jokes of her playing Harriet Tubman and stuff.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the only example I can think of is Ghost in the Shell, to where it's like you took an anime. With
my God! Yeah, I heard that was very problematic.
It still is. It still comes up. Where it's just like you took an anime that is like definitely identical with Japanese culture, with a Japanese protagonist, and you made the protagonist white. That's kind of problematic because it does convey a certain type of like thought in that, like, this should be a white actress. And then it's like it takes away from Scarlett Johansson, who is actually talented, and probably could do the role, but like you're taking the role of like a person of color.
They did the same thing with Death Note too. Like they made the main character like Yagami white, and I forgot, like, I didn't watch the film because I was like, nah, a live action movie of Death Note, this movie looks fucking terrible.
And I mean, your boy Lakeith Stanfield's in that too, so.
Yeah, I heard he's in it too. But yeah, I heard that movie was just god awful.
Netflix was still finding its feet. At the time, they were still trying to figure out.
I think they still are trying to find their feet because most of their movies are not that good to me, honestly.
Yeah, that's not what they're there for. I mean, they're better than Amazon, to where like Amazon is literally just a repository for like anybody who made anything, just so they can claim that they have the most. But like Netflix, I think they try. I think that Netflix makes like legitimate like efforts at representation, but then it's just like it comes back to what we're discussing, which is like who gets represented the most is like people of a certain kind. And like it's nice that, like, post George Floyd, Hulu has like its Black Stories hub, and is trying to showcase more Black media, and they've kind of done away with the whole diverse media, because diverse is not the right term. They're using like, hey, Black stories, Black history, Black women, and those hubs have become permanent, I think, now, that they've put up. And I think they've even signed like part of their promise is to like produce more like Black owned content, which is like aside from like the usual stuff that we discussed earlier, to where it's just like Hulu could easily just take like Bones and shit and be like, this is your meat. Yeah, this is the stuff you guys like. It's just Bones, Tales from the Hood, and Friday. That's it. Those are the only movies you get. Those are your Black stories. But they're legitimately trying. But I think the thing is that like these so-called like gatekeepers who've been preventing like Black media from being produced are starting to realize there ain't that much of it, because they haven't allowed it to get produced. So it's like you get stuff like Bad Hair slips through the cracks and like makes it and is like moderately successful. I know the critics said pretty good things about it. And you get your Jordan Peels, you get your Get Outs and stuff like that. But it's not like you have like 5 or 6 of those a year. You get one every 2 years.
Yeah.
You get Dear White People, and then you get The Show. But that's it. That's kind of where it stops. Like, Stars, for instance, is probably the most like black-facing network right now, because you have stuff like Power, like P-Valley, which is about strippers, but like you have that. You have they have American Gods. The protagonist is a black dude. Like, like Stars is doing it kind of the way that you would think that it is, but there just isn't a whole lot of media being produced that has people that look like us in it. So Ariel should be black. Make her black. Do it.
And on that note, we are going to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to do the outro. Yo, and we are back, and we are now in the outro with my guest Jeremy of Northern Tier. Once again, follow him on Instagram. It is Northern Tier Actual on Instagram, and on your Twitter, it's
_kills.
as y'all realize, I cannot remember that.
It's fine, dude. I can't either. I can tell you, I can count on like 2 hands how many times I've been kicked out of my Twitter account because I can't remember that handle. So yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, so right now we are in the outro, and as you guys know, with the outro, it's usually the slasher corner. So right now, my guest Jeremy will suggest you guys a movie. So go ahead, Jeremy. I'm gonna give it away to you for your suggestion for this week.
Yeah, I don't have a suggestion, so no, I don't have a movie to suggest, because like we were talking about Bad Hair and we talked about that and like our problems with it. So like what I want to see, the movie I'd recommend is someone doing what Bad Hair couldn't do. Someone to actually like go out and like improve upon that model, because like we don't have the problem I'm having is that we don't have enough movies for me to suggest. Is like is like if I wanted to suggest one, like keeping with the theme of Black History Month and keeping with like we're talking about Black representative media, I'm just like I can't think of anything outside of Candyman and Bones, which is like that's a horrible thing to say. So it's like I want us to make more movies so that we can make recommendations in the future. Because like Bad Hair is a good first step. Dear White People is a good first step. Get Out is a good first step, but there just ain't enough of it. So I want whoever the next filmmakers are to like watch Bad Hair and either love it enough to like make an homage to it or something like that, or hate it enough to want to do it better. And that's my recommendation for the week.
Yeah, and whoever remakes it, go full Cronenberg with it.
Go nuts, dude. Go crazy, man. Just make the movie you want. Yeah, go full Lovecraft. Make Reanimator. Like just go absolutely nuts. Just make a movie that you have fun with, that like actually like talks about us. You know what I mean? Like no one's done a Black Evil Dead yet. They haven't had that. And like I was gonna recommend Evil Dead 2, but because that's one of my favorite horror movies ever. But like I feel like I just recommend that movie too much, so I was just like, just go grab your cell phone and a couple friends and go make that movie, and then I'll recommend it.
Definitely.
So
all right, well, I'd like to thank you, Jeremy, for coming on to the show today, man.
Anytime, dude.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you on here. We be going wild and crazy on the Snapchat group chat, man.
Memes, man. So many memes that just like pop up.
Oh my god, those meat cannon memes were killing me, bro.
Yeah, man. So I just have to put my phone down sometimes. Yeah, I love it, man. No. Once again, man, congrats on getting this far in the show, dude. Like, yeah,
thank you, man.
Big episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to get to 100 one day. Then after 100, 200, man.
Dude, 100 episode special.
Oh man, I'm thinking cool. I don't know what I would do for 100 episode special, man. I mean, I don't know. I need some suggestions.
I don't don't know. Well, you got 43 episodes to think about it. So you got some time to think about when you're gonna get that done. So you'll know when you get to like episode 90 what you want to do.
Yeah.
For episode 100.
Yeah.
You'll get it. Maybe you can get like a more special guest.
Oh yeah. Man. You were my special guest, man. I mean, I love the fact that you come on here and you have like so much knowledge about film, you know, and that you're so passionate about like what is being presented, and not just like, oh my God, this film looks pretty, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to think about the message. Especially these days. There's no way. I don't think there's any way we can avoid it. But like, we got to see if we can get you like a like somebody who's actually like already working in that space.
Yeah,
we gotta start reaching out to people, man.
Yeah.
Get Jordan Peele, man. He ain't doing nothing right now.
Oh man,
just email him.
So, you know how crazy my clout would be if I could get Jordan Peele on here.
Oh, dude, you'd go nuts. I mean, honestly though, you probably could like at this point be reaching out to like student filmmakers and stuff like that because like I know them. And like talk to them and stuff. That would be that would be a pretty good angle, man. Like so for episode 100, just get like Lupita Nyong'o or something. So they're like, I have a podcast and I'd like for you to come on the show.
For real though.
Like, the most you can say is no.
That part. You only miss 100 shots that you don't take, you know.
Exactly, man. So get to episode 100.
Yeah.
Get to it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the encouragement. And definitely, you guys, make sure you follow him on social media. Once again, Instagram is Northern Tier Actual, and Twitter is
last page _kills.
I know, man. I'm still struggling with that.
It's fine. Every time you say it, I kind of forget it. So I was like, I don't know what my Twitter handle is. I'm not on there enough. But you can follow me where I post some of my essays and stuff like that for like people to go watch.
That's good to know. And if you guys want to follow me, your boy Walterdoom on Instagram, Walterdoom1 on Twitter, and Walterdoom on everything else that you are streaming podcasts on. So I'm going to go ahead, sign out. This has been another week of Let's Talk About Horror. This is America. Don't let them catch you slipping now. Stay diabolical, people. Peace.